Before you skip the video, just give me a few seconds to share something. In this video, I've covered all the interesting historical events that happened in the month of August, from famous wars to Independence Days, exciting space missions, famous birthdays, and even useful inventions for humanity. This is my first video like this, so I'd love to hear how informative it is for you and what improvements I can make in my next video. Hang tight, our ride starts now. August 1st, facts and events in history. On this day in 1589, King Henry III of France was stabbed by Jacques Clément and died the next day. In 1914, Germany declared war on Russia, signaling the beginning of World War I. In 1714, Queen Anne, the last Stuart ruler of England, died at the age of 49, marking the end of the Stuart dynasty and the beginning of the Hanoverian dynasty in Britain. On this day in 1834, slavery was abolished in the British Empire with the implementation of the Slavery Abolition Act, marking a significant step towards freedom and equality. In 1774, British scientist Joseph Priestley discovered oxygen by removing it from the air. In 1876, Colorado became the 38th state to join the United States. In 1946, the Atomic Energy Commission was established in the United States. In 1986, John McEnroe and Tatum O'Neill were married. In 2005, King Fahd of Saudi Arabia, who had ascended to the throne in 1982, died at the age of 82. In 2018, the Swedish crown jewels were stolen from a cathedral in broad daylight. August 2nd, facts and events in history. On this day in 1100, King William II of England was killed by an arrow while hunting in the New Forest, Hampshire. In 1830, Charles X of France abdicated the throne, unable to resist the July Revolution. In 1858, the Indian government came under British control. In 1870, the Tower subway in London became the first underground tube railway to open. On this day in 1990, Iraq invaded Kuwait, sparking the beginning of the Gulf War. On this day in 1976, Sam Worthington was born. He is renowned for his leading role as Jake Sully in the Avatar series, which ranks among the highest-grossing films in history. In 1934, Adolf Hitler became Führer of Germany following the death of President Paul Hindenburg. Also, in 1939, Albert Einstein signed a letter to President Roosevelt, urging the United States to initiate an atomic weapons research program. August 3rd, facts and events in history. On this day in 1108, Louis VI was crowned King of France. In 1867, Stanley Baldwin, future Prime Minister of the UK, was born in Bewdley, England. In 1923, Calvin Coolidge was sworn in as the 30th President of the United States, following the sudden death of President Harding. In 1978, Queen Elizabeth II opened the 11th Commonwealth Games held in Edmonton, Canada. On this day in 1940, Martin Sheen was born in Ohio. He is best known for his roles as Captain Benjamin L. Willard in Apocalypse Now and U.S. President Josiah Bartlet in The West Wing. In 1989, Hashemi Rafsanjani was sworn in as the President of Iran. In 2004, the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty reopened after the September 11th attacks in 2001. In 2015, President Barack Obama announced his Clean Power Plan to address climate change. In 2017, rapper Kid Creole was arrested for stabbing a homeless man to death in New York City. August 4th, facts and events in history. On this day in 1693, French monk Dom Pierre Perignon accidentally created champagne. In 1753, George Washington became a master mason. In 1900, Elizabeth, Queen Consort of the United Kingdom, was born. In 1972, Arthur Bremer was found guilty of shooting George Wallace, the governor of Alabama. In 1961, Barack Obama, the future President of the United States, was born. In 2007, NASA launched the Phoenix spacecraft from Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida. In 2011, officers closed a highway in Alberta after a truck carrying 104 beehives overturned. August 5th, facts and events in history. On this day in 1100, Henry was crowned King of England. In 1864, Italian astronomer Giovanni Donati became the first person to observe the spectrum of a comet. In 1884, the foundations were placed on Bedloe's Island in New York City to become the home of the Statue of Liberty. In 1930, Neil Armstrong, best known as the first person to set foot on the moon, was born. On this day in 1963, the United States, the Soviet Union, and the United Kingdom signed the Limited Test Ban Treaty, prohibiting nuclear weapon tests in the atmosphere, outer space, and underwater. In 1962, Nelson Mandela returned to South Africa and was arrested for illegally leaving the country. In 1981, US President Ronald Reagan fired more than 11,000 air traffic controllers who were on strike. In 1990, US President George Bush angrily denounced the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait. August 6th, Facts and Events in History. On this day in 1881, Alexander Fleming was born, best known for discovering penicillin in 1928, the world's first antibiotic. In 1806, the Holy Roman Empire came to an end as Emperor Francis II abdicated. In 1661, Portugal and the Dutch Republic signed the Treaty of The Hague. In 1825, Bolivia declared its independence from Spain. On this day, in 1945, the United States dropped an atomic bomb on Hiroshima. On this day in 1890, the electric chair was first used in New York to execute William Kemmler, establishing it as a new method of capital punishment in the US. In 1978, Pope Paul VI, who led the Roman Catholic Church for 15 years, died after suffering a major heart attack. In 1989, Jaime Paz Zamora was inaugurated as the President of Bolivia. In 1965, US President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act, aimed at stopping voting discrimination against minority groups. In 1993, Morihiro Hosokawa was elected Prime Minister of Japan. August 7th, Facts and Events in History. On this day in 936, King Otto Purun of Germany was crowned. In 1428, the Valais witch trials began in Switzerland, considered one of the first recorded witch hunts in European history. In 1560, Hungarian Countess Elizabeth Bathory was born, known for her alleged role in the torture and murder of young girls, believing that bathing in their blood would preserve her youth. On this day, in 1789, the US War Department was established by Congress. In 1814, Pope Pius VII restored the Society of Jesus. On this day in 1964, the US Congress passed the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, giving President Lyndon Johnson the authority to escalate US involvement in the Vietnam War. On this day, in 833, Al-Ma'mun reign as caliph ended with his death, concluding a significant period of intellectual and cultural advancement in the Abbasid Caliphate. In 1782, George Washington created the Purple Heart Medal, symbolizing military merit. In 1927, pirate alcohol smuggler Horace Alderman killed 3 people, including a Coast Guardsman and a Secret Service agent. On this day in 1912, Theodore Roosevelt was nominated for US President by the Progressive Party. August 8th, Facts and Events in History. In 1356, Edward the Black Prince began a raid north of Aquitaine. In 1503, King James VI of Scotland married Margaret Tudor, daughter of King Henry VII of England, in Edinburgh. On this day in 1220, Sweden was defeated by Estonian tribes in the Battle of Lehula. In 1588, the English fleet won a decisive battle against the Spanish Armada off the coast of Gravelines in northern France. In 1974, Richard Nixon resigned from the presidency of the United States due to the Watergate scandal. In 1786, the US Congress made a final decision on the use of the US dollar as currency. In 1989, the Space Shuttle Columbia launched from the Kennedy Space Center for a secret military mission. August 9th, Facts and Events in History. On this day in 1945, the second atomic bomb dropped by the United States during World War II struck the city of Nagasaki, Japan. In 1173, construction began on a bell tower in Italy that would become internationally famous as the Leaning Tower of Pisa. On this day in 48 BCE, Pompey was defeated by Julius Caesar at the Battle of Pharsalus. In 1776, Italian physicist Amedeo Avogadro was born in Turin. In 1965, Singapore proclaimed its independence from the Malaysian Federation. In 1902, Edward VII, the son of Queen Victoria, was crowned as the new King of England. In 1974, Gerald R. Ford was sworn in as President of the United States, succeeding Richard Nixon, who had resigned. In 1996, Boris Yeltsin was sworn in for his second term as President of Russia, following his victory in a closely contested election. August 10th, Facts and Events in History. In 1792, as the French Revolution continued, King Louis XIV and his wife Marie Antoinette were imprisoned. On this day in 847, al-Mutawakkil became the Abbasid Caliph, beginning a reign that ended with his assassination in 861. On this day in 1500, Portuguese explorer Diogo Dias became the first European to set foot on Madagascar. In 1793, the Louvre opened in Paris, later becoming the most visited museum in the world. In 1821, Missouri entered the United States Union, becoming the 24th state. In 1809, Ecuador declared its independence from Spain. In 1874, Herbert Hoover, the future President of the United States, was born. In 1921, Franklin D. Roosevelt was stricken with polio. In 1914, France declared war on Austria-Hungary at the onset of World War I. In 2014, protests and riots began in Missouri following the death of African-American man Michael Brown. August 11th, facts and events in history. In 1492, Pope Alexander VI, born Rodrigo Borgia, became pope. On this day in 3114 BC, the Mayan long count calendar began. This calendar system is one of the most complex and accurate calendars ever created. On this day in 355, Roman general Clodius Albinus fraudulently proclaimed himself Roman emperor and was subsequently hacked to death. In 1943, former president of Pakistan Pervez Musharraf was born in Delhi. In 1941, the Atlantic Charter was signed by US President Franklin Roosevelt and British Prime Minister Winston Churchill. On this day in 1983, Chris Hemsworth was born in Melbourne, Australia. He is famed for his role as Thor in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, solidifying his status as a leading action star. In 1995, President Bill Clinton banned all US nuclear tests. In 2016, scientists discovered the oldest living Greenland shark, estimated to be 392 years old. On this day in 2003, Charles Taylor, President of Liberia, flew into exile after ceding power to his vice president Moses Blah. August 12th, facts and events in history. On this day in 1676, the war between English colonists and Native Americans in New England ended. On this day in 1865, disinfectant was used for the first time during surgery by Joseph Lister. In 30 BC, Cleopatra, the last active ruler of the Ptolemaic Kingdom of Egypt, died. She committed suicide by allowing a poisonous snake to bite her. In 1877, Thomas Edison invented the phonograph and made the first sound recording. On this day in 1887, Austrian physicist Erwin Schrödinger was born. On this day in 1954, François Hollande, the future president of France, was born. In 1981, IBM introduced its first personal computer, the IBM PC, marking a major milestone in the personal computing revolution. In 2015, a mass grave of 30 victims of the 1665 plague was found at Liverpool Street Station in London, England. In 1964, South Africa was banned from the Olympic Games due to the country's racist policies. August 13th, facts and events in history. On this day in 523 AD, St. John Bredon became the Catholic Pope. In 1961, East Germany began construction of the Berlin Wall, which served as a symbol of the Cold War, separating East Berlin from West Berlin until 1989. In 1926, Fidel Castro, the political leader of Cuba, was born. In 1521, present-day Mexico City was captured after a 93-day siege by Spanish conqueror Hernán Cortés from the Aztec Indians. In 1985, the engagement of Maria Shriver and Arnold Schwarzenegger was announced. On this day in 1932, Adolf Hitler refused to take the post of Vice-Chancellor of Germany, stating he would hold out for all or nothing. On this day in 2014, Iranian mathematician Mahreyam Mirzakhani became the world's first woman to win the Fields Medal, the most prestigious award in mathematics. August 14th, facts and events in history. On this day in 1281, during Kublai Khan's second Mongol invasion of Japan, his invading Chinese fleet of 3,500 vessels disappeared in a typhoon near Japan. In 1935, Franklin D. Roosevelt signed the Social Security Act, creating a government pension system for the tired. In 1947, Pakistan became a sovereign state, bringing an end to British rule there. On this day in 1917, China declared war on Germany and Austria-Hungary during World War I. On this day in 1945, it was announced by US President Truman that Japan surrendered to the United States, ending World War II. August 15th, facts and events in history. On this day in 1057, Macbeth, the King of Scotland, was killed by the son of King Duncan. In 1971, Bahrain declared independence from Britain. In 1483, the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican opened for its first Mass. On this day in 636, the Battle of Yarmouk started, marking a decisive victory for Muslim forces over the Byzantine Empire. This six-day battle significantly shifted the power balance in the region and laid the groundwork for the expansion of Islamic rule in the Levant. In 1824, 1,000 Nigerian troops were airlifted into Liberia to end the occupation of Monrovia. In 1769, Napoleon Bonaparte, the future Emperor of France, was born in Ajaccio, France. On this day in 1947, India became independent from Britain and was divided into the countries of India and Pakistan. In 1948, the Republic of Korea was proclaimed. On this day in 1969, the Woodstock Festival began in Bethel, New York, becoming a pivotal moment in music history and a symbol of the counterculture movement of the 1960s. In 1972, Ben Affleck was born in Berkeley, California. He is renowned for his roles in Good Will Hunting and Argo, which won him an Academy Award for Best Picture. He also played the role of Batman in Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice and Justice League. On this day in 1960, the Republic of the Congo gained independence from France. In 1971, US President Nixon announced a 90-day freeze on wages, rents, and prices. August 16th, facts and events in history. On this day in 963, Nicephorus II was crowned Emperor of the Byzantine Empire. He is best known for his military prowess, particularly for his campaigns that expanded the empire's territories. In 1777, during the American Revolutionary War, the Battle of Bennington took place. In 1930, the world's first color cartoon with synchronized sound was released. On this day in 1960, Cyprus was granted independence by Britain. In 1861, US President Lincoln prohibited the Union States from trading with the Confederate States. On this day in 1999, Vladimir Putin was confirmed as Prime Minister of Russia by the lower house of Parliament. In 1977, American rock singer Elvis Presley died. In 2018, the world's oldest cheese, dating back 3,200 years, was discovered in an ancient Egyptian tomb near Cairo. August 17th, facts and events in history. On this day in 682, Pope Leo II became the Bishop of Rome. On this day in 1945, Indonesian nationalists declared their independence from the Netherlands. In 1560, the Catholic Church was overthrown, and Protestantism was established as the national religion in Scotland. On this day in 1877, Asaph Hall discovered Mars's second moon, called Phobos. In 1943, Robert De Niro was born in New York City. He is renowned for his iconic roles in films like Taxi Driver and The Godfather Part 2, earning multiple Academy Awards for his performances. In 1978, 3 Americans made the first successful Atlantic Ocean crossing by hot air balloon. On this day in 1988, Pakistani President Mohammad Zia-ul-Haq and US Ambassador Arnold Raffel were killed in a mysterious plane crash. In 1998, US President Bill Clinton admitted to having an improper relationship with Monica Lewinsky, a White House intern. August 18th, facts and events in history. On this day in 1227, the Mongol conqueror Genghis Khan died at age 65. In 1830, Franz Joseph, Emperor of Austria-Hungary, was born. On this day in 1938, the Thousand Islands Bridge was dedicated by US President Franklin D. Roosevelt. The bridge connects the US and Canada. On this day in 1572, Henry IV of France married Margaret of Valois from the French royal house. August 19th, facts and events in history. On this day in 1274, Edward I was crowned King of England at Westminster. In 1458, Aeneas Silvius Piccolomini was elected Pope as Pius II, following the death of Calixtus III. On this day in 1871, Orville Wright was born in Dayton, Ohio, US. He is best known for co-inventing and piloting the first successful powered airplane alongside his brother, Wilbur Wright, in 1903, marking a significant milestone in aviation history. In 1477, Mary of Burgundy married Archduke Maximilian, son of Habsburg Emperor Ferdinand III. In 1934, approximately 90% of German voters approved a referendum that made Adolf Hitler chancellor. In 1991, Soviet hardliners announced that President Mikhail Gorbachev had been removed from power. Gorbachev returned to power 2 days later. On this day in 1946, US President Bill Clinton was born. In 1953, the CIA orchestrated a coup that overthrew Iranian Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh, replacing him with Shah Mohammad Reza. On this day in 2005, Russia and China began their first ever joint military exercise. In 2020, Apple Inc. became the first company to be valued at over $2 trillion. August 20th, facts and events in history. On this day in 1741, Danish navigator Vitus Bering discovered Alaska. In 1977, NASA launched Voyager 2 to explore the outer planets, which became one of the most successful space missions in history. In 1866, President Andrew Johnson declared that the American Civil War was over. On this day in 1914, Brussels was captured during the German invasion of Belgium, marking a significant moment in World War I. In 1960, Senegal broke from the Mali Federation, declaring its independence. In 1940, exiled Soviet leader Leon Trotsky was assassinated with an ice axe in Mexico City. On this day in 1944, Rajiv Gandhi, Prime Minister of India, was born. In 1991, Estonia claimed its independence from the USSR. August 21st, facts and events in history. On this day in 1264, Kublai Khan, the Khagan Emperor of the Mongol Empire, accepted the surrender of his younger brother Arik Bok, effectively ending the Toluid Civil War. In 1911, the Mona Lisa was stolen from the Louvre by 3 Italian handymen. The following year, Arthur R. Eldred became the first American boy to earn the rank of Eagle Scout. In 1673, the naval battle of Texel took place in the North Sea. On this day in 1959, Hawaii was admitted as the 50th state of the United States. In 1914, Private John Parr became the first British soldier to be shot and killed during World War I. In 1991, Latvia declared its independence from the Soviet Union. In 1930, Princess Margaret, Countess of Snowdon, was born in Glamis Castle, Scotland. In 1994, Ernesto Zedillo won the Mexican presidential election. August 22nd, facts and events in history. On this day in 1485, the War of the Roses ended with the death of England's King Richard III, who was killed in the Battle of Bosworth Field. His successor was Henry VII. In 1703, Ahmed III became Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. His reign, marked by the Tulip era, ended in 1730 after a military revolt led to his abdication. In 1642, the English Civil War began when Charles Pye called Parliament and its soldiers traitors. In 1849, Austria launched pilotless balloons against the city of Venice, marking the first air raid in history. In 1770, Australia was claimed under the British Crown when Captain James Cook landed there. In 1902, Theodore Roosevelt became the first president of the United States to make a public appearance in an automobile. In 1973, Henry Kissinger was named Secretary of State by US President Nixon. In 1988, Australia began selling its first platinum coin featuring a koala, with a value of $100 Australian. August 23rd, facts and events in history. On this day in 1305, William Wallace was executed for treason by order of King Edward Mamul of England. In 1514, the Ottomans won a decisive victory over the Safavids of Iran at the Battle of Chaldiran. In 1541, French explorer Jacques Cartier arrived in the city of Quebec during his third voyage to Canada. On this day in 634 AD, Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq, the first caliph of Islam, passed away. On the same day, Hazrat Umar ascended as the second caliph of Islam. In 1775, Britain's King George III stated that the American colonies were in a state of open and avowed rebellion. In 1951, Queen Noura of Jordan was born. In 1982, the Parliament of Lebanon elected Bashir Gemayel as president, but he was assassinated 3 weeks later. In 1990, Armenia declared its independence from the Soviet Union. August 24th, facts and events in history. On this day in 79 AD, Mount Vesuvius erupted, beginning the destruction of the Roman cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum, burying them under volcanic ash and pumice. In 410, Alaric, chief of the Visigoths, led an army into Rome, an event that symbolizes the fall of the Western Roman Empire. In 1814, during the War of 1812, Washington, D.C. was invaded by British forces, who set fire to the White House and the Capitol. On this day in 1968, France became the world's fifth nuclear power when it exploded its first hydrogen bomb. This date also marks Ukraine's Independence Day, celebrated since 1991, when the country separated from the Soviet Union. In 2006, the International Astronomical Union reclassified Pluto as a dwarf planet. On this day in 1991, Russian President Mikhail Gorbachev resigned as the head of the Communist Party. August 25th, facts and events in history. In 1609, Galileo demonstrated one of his earlier telescopes to Venetian lawmakers. In 325 AD, the doctrine of the Holy Trinity was established after the Council of Nicaea. Ivan IV, known as Ivan the Terrible, the first Tsar of Russia, was born in 1530. In 1814, British forces destroyed the US Library of Congress. Uruguay declared its independence from Brazil in 1825, and Paris was liberated by Allied forces in 1944, ending 4 years of German occupation. In 1991, Belarus declared its independence from the Soviet Union. Neil Armstrong, the first man on the moon, died in 2012 at age 82. August 26th, facts and events in history. In 55 BC, Roman forces under Julius Caesar invaded Britain. On this day in 1920, the 19th Amendment to the US Constitution was certified, granting women the right to vote and marking a significant milestone in the women's suffrage movement. In 1346, during the Hundred Years' War, the English, led by Edward III, defeated the French at the Battle of Crécy. Michelangelo was commissioned to create his famous sculpture Pietà in 1498. Captain James Cook set sail on his first voyage from Plymouth, heading for the Pacific Ocean in 1768. On this day, in 1895, the first electric power was generated at Niagara Falls. Albino Cardinal Luciano was elected Pope John Paul I in 1978, and Mother Teresa, a Roman Catholic nun, was born in 1910. August 27th, facts and events in history. On this day in 1783, Jacques Charles and the Robert brothers released the first ever unmanned hydrogen balloon, and in 1813, Napoleon triumphed at the Battle of Dresden against Austrian forces. During the American Revolution in 1776, British forces under General William Howe defeated George Washington and the Continental Army at the Battle of Long Island. In 1660, John Milton's books were burned in London due to his criticisms of King Charles II. In 1576, the renowned Italian Renaissance painter Titian, a master of the Venetian school, passed away. Lyndon B. Johnson, the future US president, was born in 1908. In 1991, the Soviet Republic of Moldova declared its independence. August 28th, facts and events in history. On this day in 1963, Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his iconic "I Have a Dream" speech during the March on Washington, advocating for racial equality and civil rights. In 476, the fall of the Western Roman Empire was finalized when Emperor Romulus Augustulus was deposed by the Germanic leader Odoacer. In 1542, the Battle of Wafla occurred between Turkish and Portuguese forces. In 1619, Ferdinand II was elected Holy Roman Emperor, promoting his vision of one church, one king, to suppress Protestantism. In 1969, approximately 200,000 people marched on Washington, D.C., marking a significant moment in the civil rights movement. In 1996, the marriage of Charles, Prince of Wales, and Princess Diana ended with the issuance of their final divorce decree. On this day in 1793, the siege of Toulon began during the French Revolutionary Wars. August 29th, facts and events in history. In 1261, Urban IV, who had served as Bishop of Verdun and Patriarch of Jerusalem, succeeded Alexander IV as Pope. In 1782, the British naval vessel HMS Royal George sank, claiming over 800 lives. On this day in 1991, the Supreme Soviet of the Soviet Union officially suspended all activities of the Communist Party. In 1831, Michael Faraday discovered electromagnetic induction, a foundational principle in electromagnetism. In 1966, the Beatles played their final concert at Candlestick Park in San Francisco, leaving a legacy of songs that defined the soundtrack of the 1960s political and cultural upheaval, especially in the US. In 2005, Hurricane Katrina struck Louisiana, causing devastating floods and significant destruction. On this day in 1780, Jean-Auguste Dominique Ingres was born in Montauban, France. He is celebrated for his neoclassical paintings that significantly influenced 19th century academic art. On this day in 1907, the Quebec Bridge in Canada collapsed during construction. In 1957, Senator Strom Thurmond of South Carolina set a U.S. filibuster record, speaking for 24 hours and 18 minutes. On this day in 1135, al-Rashid became the Abbasid Caliph after the death of his father. However, his reign was short-lived, ending in 1136. In 1958, Michael Jackson, the iconic American singer, was born in Indiana. On this day, in 1990, Iraqi President Saddam Hussein famously declared that America could not defeat Iraq. In 2020, Elon Musk revealed a pig named Gertrude with a computer chip implanted in her brain, showcasing advances in neurotechnology. August 30th, facts and events in history. On this day in 1444, Mehmed II became the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire after his father, Sultan Murad II, abdicated. Mehmed II is famous for his conquest of Constantinople in 1453. On this day in 1780, General Benedict Arnold secretly promised to surrender the West Point fort to the British Army. In 1871, British physicist Ernest Rutherford was born. On this day in 1835, the first Europeans started the first permanent settlement of Melbourne. In 1918, Fanny Kaplan, a Ukrainian Jewish socialist revolutionary, attempted to assassinate Vladimir. On this day in 1991, the Soviet Republic of Azerbaijan declared its independence. In 1954, Alexander Lukashenko, president of Belarus, was born. On this day in 1993, the second largest mosque in Africa officially opened in Casablanca, Morocco. On this day in 1797, British author Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley was born at London, England. August 31st, facts and events in history. In 12 AD, the notorious Roman Emperor Caligula was born. Commodus, another Roman emperor, was also born on this day in 161 AD. In 1876, Abdul Hamid II became Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. On this day in 1569, Jahangir, the Emperor of India, was born. In 1989, Great Britain's Princess Anne and Mark Phillips announced their separation after 16 years of marriage. In 1940, the celebrated actors Laurence Olivier and Vivien Leigh were married. In 1997, Princess Diana of Wales passed away in a car accident in Paris, France. In 1957, Malaysia gained independence from the United Kingdom, officially marking the end of British colonial rule. In 1970, Rania Al Abdullah, Queen of Jordan, was born. On this day in 1991, Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan declared their independence from the Soviet Union. On this day in 1888, Mary Ann Polly Nichols became the first widely recognized victim of Jack the Ripper, marking the start of the infamous Whitechapel murders in London. Thanks for watching. Was there an important event I missed? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.